You hold the State of the Union, every single politician's in that room, you lock the doors, you bring in your special task force, and those people, I mean, I would bring them in immediately. Like if they already have the evidence to arrest people, I would bring that task force in front of the entire world, and I would put the cuffs on the people that are going to prison. The people that we know that are pinned down, rock solid, we got all the dots are connected, boom. Nancy Pelosi be easy, day one, right? Insider trading, she's gone, at least for insider trading, all of them, right? And you put every single one of them in prison. You hold special new elections that are free and fair. Once we get our elections, that would be also huge. So before you arrest everybody, and you're going to have these snap elections, right? You have to make sure that they're not still being rigged. So we have to get same day in-person voting, paper ID, so like, there's a lot of key moving pieces that I think Trump is really trying to be good. It's hard to say with, like watching all of these people that are obviously not the best candidates for the job get put into positions because of what looks like, one could only assume, their loyalty to Israel, right? And it's like you can't have people, you can't be pro-Israel in America first. You just can't, right?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on The State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of The State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Is proud to partner with 3 fantastic companies. The first one, Legal Shield, gives you 24/7 access to an attorney at a great low monthly rate, and they can help you on a wide range of issues from drafting a will to reviewing contracts or legislation and monitoring your identity. Everyone I've talked to at the company has been professional, friendly, and super helpful. I've had a great experience. The second company is Partner Co., which is an amazing resource for homeopathic and all-natural wellness products that address everything from weight loss to improving energy, immunity boosting, detoxification, and more. I'm taking several products right now, but my favorite one is called Tahitian Noni Juice. It gives me great energy and a good mood boost every single day, and since I started drinking it, I have not missed a single day. The third company is Metal Stacks. They are our go-to source for physical precious metals and IRA conversions into precious metals. I converted my Fidelity 401k into a precious metals IRA with them using their white glove service, and it was a very approachable and easy to manage process with the same real humans who helped me all along the way. I can't say enough about it. So if you are in the market for any of these, or if I've piqued your interest, I encourage you to visit freedomstate.us and shop with our fantastic, trusted partners. You can also drop me a line if you have any questions at danielle@freedomstate.us. Well, joining us today is a bold, courageous storyteller and a warrior for truth that we are so honored to have on the show. Our guest, Ryan Matta, is a documentary filmmaker and investigative journalist who is on a divine mission to expose the world's largest child trafficking network. He was the executive producer for the 2 What is Treason films that he teamed up with J.J. Carroll on, and many of you would remember that J.J.'s been on the show a few times. Excellent guest. And most recently, Ryan has produced Operation Amber Alert and Operation Amber Alert Guatemala, films that further expose the truth about America's direct involvement in child trafficking. Before we get into the discussion today, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Psalm chapter 27, verses 1 through 3. And it says, "The Lord is my revelation light to guide me along the way. He's the source of my salvation to defend me every day. I fear no one. I'll never turn back and run from you, Lord. Surround and protect me. When evil ones come to destroy me, they will be the ones who turn back. My heart will not be afraid, even if an army rises to attack. I know that you are there for me, so I will not be shaken." That's it. That's the end of 3. Sorry. And the title of the psalm in the Passion Translation is Fearless Faith. And this morning I was thinking of this idea of King David being the warrior worshiper his whole life, even before he was a king. And I was thinking about that because the Lord's been speaking to me about the spiritual war that we're in. And one of the main weapons he's been talking to me about is worship. And the Lord talks about it in the scriptures as warfare worship. It's worship that changes the atmosphere and causes demons to flee. And it's worship that sets the conditions and opens the door for the Lord and his angels to tear down strongholds and depose wickedness in high places. In the natural, it seems like going to war and singing praises to God are very separate and really, almost opposing actions. But in the spiritual realm, it is undeterred, unrelenting, unafraid worship that opens the door for the Lord to move. Worship brings the presence of God. That's why David was such a successful and valiant, fearless warrior, because he invited the presence of God into his life continually. He acknowledged and sought after the presence of God. And that kind of worship changes your perspective and it changes your reality. It caused David to rise up in boldness and say, if the Lord of all, if the creator of heaven and earth is with me, whom shall I fear? And his answer to himself here in Psalm 27, as he lived as an example to all of us, was, I fear no one. So my charge to all of us today is to get into a mode of continual worship and conversation with the Lord. This will empower us to live boldly and fearlessly because our worship invites the Lord's presence, and we will be able to confidently face whatever comes our way. And I got started so quickly that I forgot to mention that Chris is joining us by phone. So Chris, are you on mute there?
Nope.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Well, Danielle, I greatly appreciate the scripture today, and the thought that comes to my mind as I listen to the scripture and I think about David is that, you know, we all have Goliaths in our life, or what appear to be Goliaths, but there's no Goliath in our lives that can compare with or ever certainly take dominion over the power of God in our hearts and in our lives. He's overcome the world. He has dominion over all evil and over all the world.
Yeah.
And all he's asking of us is a small step of faith, and to try to continue to cultivate that relationship with him. And he will meet us more than halfway.
Yeah.
And he understands us better than we understand ourselves. We just have to move forward in faith, and he will always meet us more than halfway. And speaking of someone who has taken extraordinarily bold steps in the name of righteousness and goodness in the world, and really is a man of tremendous courage and faith and resilience, is Ryan Matta. And I'm just so thankful to have him with us today. As you said, I think you said that J.J. Carroll's documentary partner. So much to expose so much horror in the world. Ryan, what a privilege to have you with us for a little while today on the State of Freedom, sir. And I'm sorry that I'm joining by phone, but I'm down at the Capitol fighting the Goliaths in the Louisiana State Capitol today. So pardon me for not being at least spatially present.
Man, God bless you, Chris. Thank you so much, man. People that have the time and the energy to go down to that Capitol and fight and stand on those steps, man. We appreciate you guys. Hold these scumbag politicians accountable, man. We need more people like you.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, you know what? And that's another thing that I didn't mention in the intro, Ryan, is that that nobody really ever has any doubt about where you stand on issues, because you tend never to mince words, and that's really we need more of that in the world. But I want to ask you, Ryan, as we start here, the things that you're involved in, the things that you've done and are doing, are so they're horrific. The things that you have exposed and continue to expose, from child sex trafficking, and then obviously the grift that is occurring in our government through USAID, our money that has gone to facilitate this sex trafficking horror. How did you get involved in this to begin with? What was your inspiration?
Oh, it's just divine intervention. I think God wanted me on this mission because I have this talent to create content, tell stories, and produce documentaries and films at a rate that seems unprecedented in this industry. So I think that all the doors I wanted to open just got closed in my face, and it was just like I was at CPAC film. I randomly put out some the FTX collapse happened, right? And then Tucker Carlson was talking smack about Sam Bankman-Fried, and I turned it into a short, and it went like mega viral. So that I did it again and again and again and again. And next thing I know, I was doing 30 million views a month across 3 YouTube channels, doing like 10 or 20 times CNN numbers by myself, just one guy with a few shorts because I figured out how to break their algorithm. And then when my voice got too big, they silenced me because I put out a video that said Andrew Tate said Bitcoin was a better investment than buying a house. And it got labeled as violent and dangerous content. So they demonetized all 3 of my channels. And I happened to be spotlighting because of those shorts. I got invited to come to CPAC and film for LFA TV. And they wanted me just to film the B-roll and then make shorts for them after the fact. And I did that. When I was there, one of the girls called off on the show. She didn't show up to CPAC. One of their main hosts for the 4 p.m. show didn't show up. So Jeremy wanted to let her go. And I filled in her spot that day. So when I lost my YouTube channel got demonetized at 6:45 p.m. And I walked out of the doors after filming the Trump rally at 7:03. And Jeremy offered me a job. So I'd lost all my income. And 18 minutes later, I was offered new income. So I was like, oh, I can't turn that down. And then first week on the job, as a reporter at LFA TV, Carlos Arellano came forward with the whistleblower that was delivering and trafficking children for the last 8 years for both administrations, under the Trump and the Biden administration. But under the Trump administration, he didn't really know that he was trafficking kids. He thought he was because he actually was. He was reunifying the children with an adult sponsor, right? They were all DNA tested. And he's like, when you go to an airport and you deliver and you reunify a child, like, a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old with a mother, the second that child sees that mother, they're running. Their arms are wide open. They're smiling. Tears are running down her face. And you can tell when you're delivering a child to a relative or to a family member because the child is just so ecstatic. Imagine not seeing your mom and you're 7 years old for 3 months or 6 months or, even 2 weeks. And you're stuck in these organizations like with Border Patrol agents and 1,000 other migrant children. And most of them have been raped and assaulted. If you haven't been raped or assaulted or gone through the worst of it, and you're just a normal kid, you get put in that, it must be traumatizing. I could only imagine what it's like being raped and tortured and then put into that environment, thinking you're safe, but realizing that you're only just in this environment to get turned over back right into the same environment that you came from, because our government's going to literally deliver you to another pedophile. So that's kind of how I got sucked into it. And then I didn't get sucked into it. I just got led by God. I think he just opened every door that I wanted to open. And, and I wanted to put together a film. Next thing I know, JJ lands in my lap. And then next thing I know, like our first mission we go on, it's just like every door that we needed to open just opened, and it was just seamless. And the process was just so convenient. Every time I want to go onto a trip or do another documentary, another film, it's like, oh, I don't have money. And then like yesterday, all of a sudden I get a phone call and somebody wants to contract another film for me, which will fund the next 3 of my documentaries. So it's like every time I try to walk away from this and go back into Bitcoin, which is my goal, is just I made a deal with God that I was going to rescue these 350,000 migrant children. And then after that, I was just going to kind of retire and go into the abyss. And I thought, the first film that me and JJ did, I thought for sure I've been doing it for 2 years. Before I met JJ, me and JJ weren't planning on making the film on child trafficking. We're planning on making the film on the invasion and the treasonous actions of our government, that in the aftermath of what they've done, as far as allowing 30 plus million illegal immigrants to invade our country over a 4-year period, we were just going to focus on that. And then in the process, everything basically led back to pedophilia and child trafficking. So by the time we were done with it, we had enough to tell. It was too much. I couldn't fit it into the one documentary. So I texted JJ and I said, hey, we can't fit the child trafficking into the invaded documentary. It's too much. You can put a few pieces in there, but it's not going to make an impact, right? If your goal is to save these children and you only put a few minutes of it, it's like you need a full hour just to tell that one story. And I was only telling the version of it. The first time I told the story was of the children, their journey. So like when a child's kidnapped, what is it like when they're getting kidnapped? They're getting trafficked through Mexico. What is being trafficked through Mexico and tied up into rape trees and raped by the cartels on your way over here? Then you hit the border. You think you're safe, but you're really just handed over to a Border Patrol agent. Then the Border Patrol agent processes you, puts your buyer's information in the system, and then shuffles you over to HHS. And HHS vets that so-called pedophile, then sends you to an NGO, and then the NGO delivers you to that pedophile. And then once you're in that pedophile, what is that pedophile doing to you? That's where we had Baz come in, and Baz is the man who goes and kicks in the door, and he's rescued 1,500 of these children. So he can tell you exactly what the children has been, what that journey is like for the child. So the first documentary I put out was telling the story from the child's standpoint, what it's like as a child getting trafficked through that network. What are the children dealing with? And because we put that behind a paywall, that's when I realized, like, oh, you can't just do this and put these films behind a paywall because it's child trafficking. People are like, oh, yep, I know it's happening. I don't want to hear it. Like, I know it's bad. I get it. Our government's involved in it. Don't want to hear it. They put their blinders on because I don't want to pay the $9.99. So then I said, okay, all right, God, you blessed me with some Bitcoin. So I'm going to take, I took 75,000 because these documentaries cost me roughly 25 grand. Some might cost me 23, some might cost me 27, but roughly 25 grand is basically like the point where I need to make that much back to just break even. And I'm still probably going to lose a little bit. And that's not paying myself a penny. So I'm putting in hundreds, if not 1,000 hours into each one of these films. And I make zero from it, $0 paying myself $0 an hour. And just to break even on the films, but the information needs to be out there and I gain followers and I get a few more supporters. And it's kind of all, I think it'll all work out in the end. So I'm not really worried about it. I just wanted to save these kids. So the second one I said I'm going to put out, and then I'm just going to highlight the amount of money and how obvious this operation was. I'm going to show you how a normal trafficking operation works as far as with the cartels and what they would have to do in the process of a cartel member trafficking a child into America. And then I'm going to show you how our government, HHS and DHS, have literally taken over the most two dangerous legs of the journey for the cartel members. And they've turned America into the child trafficking capital of the world. And I really wanted to focus on just the funding aspect, the fact that, like, when Democrats and Nancy Pelosi awarded, like, let's just say $1.1 billion to these NGOs over Nancy Pelosi's tenure as speaker over that 2-year period when they had control of the House, the Senate, everything. They only gave these NGOs $1.1 billion. And then Speaker Johnson takes over the gavel and him and McCarthy increased the funding to $1.8 billion. So not only did they not stop it, they increased the funding. And you could even go the first 2 years, I mean, you could even say that Nancy Pelosi honestly may have had plausible deniability to an extent. You know, a majority of that money was probably approved and the funding was approved before we really had an idea of how big this animal was and how evil this monster was. But by the time that the Republicans took office, I mean, and I broke down the exact dates of the first whistleblower complaint, the second whistleblower complaint. I went through all the organizations and the oversight committees. I mean, there was 3 different oversight committees with a total of like 187 members of Congress and the Senate that sat on these investigative committees that brought the whistleblowers in, and all the members of Congress sit there and question them, right? And they do this, you know, dog and pony show where they're interviewing the whistleblowers. And, you know, we had like 187 members of Congress who sat directly on that committee and would have oversaw and heard exactly what was going on. And we're talking about, you know, Southwest Key programs. If I just wanted to read you the rape allegations and charges, and these aren't like just allegations, these are cases where people have already been convicted. These are employees that worked at Southwest Key programs that were raping the little boys and little girls that were inside these facilities. And then they got caught doing it. They've been charged and prosecuted. And now the DOJ has like a massive lawsuit against Southwest Key as a whole across all their organizations because there's so many rape cases where children were inside these facilities and they were getting raped. It would take me 30 minutes just to read off, you know, 15-year-old migrant child at Cocopelli in Arizona was anally raped by a, you know, 27-year-old staff member. He was busted when, you know, the 15-year-old kid passed a note to the teacher, blah, 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 blah. Next case, you know, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old girl were all sexually assaulted vaginally at, you know, Casa Melinda in, you know, Brownsville, Texas on blah, 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 blah date. The teacher passed a note. The girl passed a note to one of her teachers when she knew that the staff member was out of town on vacation. And she basically said that he's a team leader and all the employees were basically covering for him and trading shifts with him. So the other employees were trading shifts with this team leader so he could get alone and be alone with these children and rape these children. And this is all,
So
this
Ryan,
is all known.
Ryan, I need to ask you about this because this is, I can't even describe, you know, the emotions I feel hearing you say this. It's just absolutely horrific. And I want to clarify something. So you're saying that these congressional committees and the U.S. Congress were funding NGOs to the tune of billions and billions of dollars that they knew were funding these child trafficking organizations and all of this sexual horror that you're talking about with children?
Absolutely 100% fact. Undebatable, undeniable fact.
Wow.
So let me put it this way. Ready? Okay, over the last 4 years, and I'm working on this story, I'm going to break it on InfoWars, but I might as well break it on your show first, right? Is there any way I can share my screen with you guys?
Is there Yeah, maybe you can. I'm sorry.
No, I probably can't. But if you see over here on the corner of my screen, what I got here is an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So on this spreadsheet in the top left corner over here is the number of migrant children who have been trafficked into America during the Biden administration. And that number is 452,121. So 452,121 migrant children between the ages of 0 and 17 have arrived at the U.S. border. Our government took physical possession. So this next sheet, if I go over to this last page, right here, it clearly states, this is a letter posted by Xavier Becerra, which clearly states, once ORR takes temporary custody of a child, we work to place the UC in a safe, healthy environment for the presidency of the child's immigration process, or for the extended period of the child's immigration process. So that means that when a child age 0 to 17 steps foot on U.S. soil, they become property of the United States government. So our government took physical custody of, and these children were property. 452,121 children were property of the United States government. So the United States government's job, so they say, is to reunify said child with a sponsor. So out of those, they delivered 350,000 as of December 14th of 2024. They delivered 350,000 children to an unvetted, undocumented illegal immigrant, or half-assly vetted illegal immigrant who just invaded our country. They go on this website and they apply to get a child, and they delivered 350,000 children to these predators. They were delivering children to strip clubs. So these men were giving these IDs, these fake IDs, and probably unknowingly to them, just like I bought this fake ID in Texas or in New York off a Venezuelan gangbanger. I bought this ID, got my name to John Smith, got a new address, new identity. And you can see my finger behind here, right?
Yeah.
It's even holographic. I mean, it looks real, like the real deal. So I would basically take a photo of this and using WhatsApp, and I send in my ID via WhatsApp to a case coordinator. And they look at this ID and they pull up Google and they go, oh, New York ID expired in 2022. What do fake IDs in New York look like? What do you realize? And they're using Google, trying to determine if this ID is legit. And then they take the address and they use Google Earth. So they were vetting the sponsors using Google Earth, using a background check company, if you call it that. And they were authorizing delivery of 350,000 children. Now, they cannot find any one of these children. So in my documentary, when I talk about our government takes over the most dangerous legs of the journey for a child trafficker, when you're talking about trafficking children, there's two really dangerous parts of the journey for the child trafficker, right? The second most dangerous part is bringing the merchandise across the border, smuggling that child across our border. That is the number one place where you can get busted, and that is the highest probability we have at saving a child. Once a child crosses over our border and is delivered to a buyer, the delivery to the buyer is the first most dangerous part, right? So what our government has done now is all the cartels have to do is brand the child. They put a phone number on its t-shirt. They literally take permanent marker and they'll write a name, an address, and a phone number on the shirt. And they just toss the child over a border wall, or they see some girl walking and they say, hey, walk this kid up to the border. And the girl walks the kid up to the border. However the kid gets across the border, they're delivering them to Border Patrol agents. And they know as long as they put a name, a phone number, and an address, the Border Patrol agent's going to put that information in the child's file as a sponsor, and then HHS is going to vet that person, and that child's going to get delivered to that buyer. So out of those 350,000 they delivered, they cannot locate the adult or the child. Now, why does that matter? Because when you talk about a child trafficking pipeline, once a child crosses that border in a normal trafficking environment and is delivered to a buyer in America, there's less than a 1% chance that child will ever be seen alive again. And his life expectancy goes from 72 years, it depends on what country they live in, but let's just say 72 years is the average life expectancy in the world, to 24 to 36 months. So what does that mean? That means that on January 1st of 2021, the Biden administration had already January 1st of 2021 is day one. Biden takes office, right? 2 months later, 60 days later, HHS had already openly admitted to losing 20,000 children. By year 2, it was 85,000 children. By year 3, it was like 270,000. And now it's upwards of 350,000. So if we take the 350,000 and we divide that by 4 years, right? 4 years, there's 1,460 days in 4 years. That gives you an average of 239, let's just say 240 children per day were getting delivered. So our government was taking these children that were coming across the border, putting them into this system, and they were vetting sponsors, and they had a person like Carlos roughly delivering bunches of Carlos, right? Delivering on average 240 children per day. So once that child is delivered, you can start its expiration date clock, right? Just like you put a steak in your fridge, that steak in that fridge is only going to stay so good for so long before it literally just spoils. It's dead. It's rotted, right? Because it can't sustain. These poor little children cannot sustain being chained in a basement and raped 7 to 10 times a day, every day, drugged up, beat, cigarette butts put out on their arms over and over and over again, right? They cannot sustain that. So you literally start a ticker, a countdown timer on when that child is going to hit its expiration date, AKA be raped to death. Let me be very clear, raped to death. So that means that every day, right, when you hit that 3-year period, you can assume that that child is dead, okay? So that means for the last 4 years, now we're going on to 5, right? The administration was delivering 240 children a day. So if you go back, I don't know what the date is, it would be, what's the date today? So if you just go 3 years from today, it's 2025. So if you go back to 2022, any child that was delivered before January 1st of 2022 is dead. So you can assume that 87,500 of these children, and these are the actual numbers. This is me taking data, not my opinion. Yeah. This right here is the government. Let me zoom in on this one so you guys can see it. These numbers right here, these are all off the government website. I'm taking data from HHS's website. These are their numbers that I'm giving you. And these are the facts and the statistics about how child trafficking works. So that means that we are by day 90, April 20th of 2025, day 90, right, of the Trump administration, 21,570 children, additional children that could have been saved, but our government failed to take action, have been raped to death because of Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and RFK's failure to fucking do their gosh damn job and go kick doors in and save these fucking children. By day 185, 43,151 more additional children will be raped to death. By October 1st, 275 days into the Trump administration, it's 65,000 children. January 20th, 1 year into the Trump administration, if they have still not went and kicked these doors in and saved these children, you can sign the death warrant, the rape death warrant for 87,500 new children. Additional children are going to get raped to death in this scumbag pedophile network that our government designed. How the fuck, and I'm sorry, pardon my gosh damn French, but how the fuck is this shit not headline news on every gosh damn news network across our fucking country today? I'm so fucking fed up with the bullshit lies and our fucking politicians and these gosh damn committees. These are fucking innocent children. You delivered them to a pedophile network. I can show you addresses of strip clubs where you delivered fucking children to. 512 children to one gosh damn apartment complex. And we're sitting over here talking about gosh damn anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So Ryan, so here we are. It's tax day. We're paying the government to do this. We're paying to allow the government to do this. Who is getting paid? We know that the government sends money to these, Catholic charities, all these different organizations, but who at the top is getting paid for this? Because there has to be a money trail beyond these so-called charities and pass-through organizations.
So every one of these child trafficking organizations is a foundation, right, or a corporation, right? They all have board of directors. So you have the CEOs and executives, and then you have 8 roughly members on their board of directors. Those are your lieutenants, and then you probably have a structure of actual internal employees that are also probably making 6-figure salaries, and then all the rest of it is just basically laundered. You're an NGO, you're a non-governmental organization, or you're a 501(c)(3). At the end of the year, all you have to do is show a zero balance in your bank account, which means you can also have assets. So these NGOs that are funneling billions of our dollars, they're buying up our real estate, they're buying up our land, they're buying up the spare plane tickets, they're making the cost of your gas go up, they're making the cost of your transportation go up, they're using buses, they're using airplanes, they're using rental cars, they're buying vehicles. I mean, everything that these NGOs do drives the price. I mean, inflation's bad. Yeah, because you have NGOs that have spent roughly $66 billion of our tax dollars just flooded into our economy because they have all this extra money coming from our government. The paper trail is so long, and the reason that I say that this is never gonna go anywhere and they're never gonna do anything is because when you start to look into who are these people that are sitting on these board of directors, a vast majority of them will be previous government contracts, and a vast majority of them will be Jewish, unfortunately. So you're going to see a bunch of people that are Jewish, and then it'll be anti-Semitic to call out the fact that there's 8 people sitting on a board of directors and 7 of them are Jewish, and they're all that way. Every single one that I've looked into is that way. It's structured. It's bizarre. I don't understand it. I don't know how all these pieces fit together, and I don't know how they're all connected. But what you're seeing is basically employees that worked in our government at HHS, right? And they see that we're cutting a $30 million contract check every 90 days to Southwest Key programs. And that's for the actual housing of the migrants, right? Think of these shelters like a hotel. So when you go into a hotel, if you want a steak dinner, right, you got to pay extra. It's just not part of your hotel. You want your laundry cleaned, you got to pay for the laundry service. So these NGOs kind of realized that. So after the first meeting, basically, and this is directly from a whistleblower that was writing the checks, he was writing $600 million, no contract, no bid checks to Jewish Family Services, roughly every. And JJ's like, how often was that? Like once a year? And he's like, no, dude, it was like every month, every 90 days. We were cutting $600 million checks to Jewish Family Services, $300 million checks to Lutheran Family Services, $200 million checks to Catholic charities, right? And then after the first meeting, he said they all came back and they were like, oh, yeah, by the way, we said $30 million for the shelter. Oh, by the way, it's actually going to be an additional $10 million for medical. It's going to be another $5 million for laundry, and it's going to be another $10 million for food. And then what they do is what we were seeing is employees were leaving the government. They were magically going and starting a business that was going to provide food services for these migrants. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, this government employee leaves HHS, starts an NGO. Week one of his corporation being open, he's getting a $10 million check from our government, unaudited. Nobody's looking for this money. There's no oversight. There's no investigations. That's why I say, like, this child migrant trafficking operation that's being ran, you have attorneys that are involved in it. You have politicians that are involved with it. You have government employees that are involved with it. You have families that are involved with it. And it's not like it's rocket science. It's paper. And we sent them money. And then that money went into a bank account. And then it was used via debit card, wire transfers. They weren't just pulling out cash and just doling out cash. The paper trail is all there. We can find every penny, every dollar. And using the RICO and using the law like they did against the January 6ers, they could dismantle this network. I mean, I forget what it is. It was like by day 80 of the Biden administration, they had arrested 400 January 6ers. Yeah. They had brought an indictment against President Trump. They had deplatformed Trump from every social media platform. And they had arrested, or at least pressed charges or indicted, Steve Bannon, whatever the other guy's name was. There's like 3 of them.
Navarro, so like, people and somebody
Navarro.
else. Yeah.
Give them time. Give the FBI. It's Cash's first week. Dude, and you look at Cash and he's denying FOIA requests for Judicial Watch into the Epstein files. It's like, what do they have on these people that is so powerful? What was Cash always corrupt and always trying to undermine Trump? Or was this all a play and a ruse? Just, I'm going to turn the FBI into a spy museum, Washington, D.C. Capitol headquarters into a spy museum day one, Epstein files day one, government gangsters, all this crap. And then he gets on there and he's like, my top priority is the defense of Israel. We're going to make a strong Israel. It's like, what? Bongino, what keeps you up at night? Oh, the security of Israel. Like,
So Ryan, you obviously have the evidence, you have the goods, you have the receipts, yet there's no movement on it. What about this? And you alluded to this just a minute ago. Obviously, in order to put together a massive RICO action, to put together, federal criminal indictments and arrests against these bad actors, what if their response is, these things take time, because once you pull the trigger, you can't unpull it, and we want the T's crossed and the I's dotted, but we will pull the trigger, but it takes time. How do you respond to that?
Every day, 240 additional children are raped to fucking death. TikTok, motherfuckers. What is your number? Tell me what number you can justify how many children you are okay with being raped to death. What is it? Pick your number. How many more days? Because you tell me how many more days, and I'll tell me how many more children are going to be raped to death.
Yeah.
And you tell me what number is justifiable. And then after the fact, if any of them aren't actually dead, I want you to go sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with that child and his fucking parents and explain to them how you justified letting their child get raped. What was your justification? So you see what I'm going with this? There is no fucking excuse. You kick fucking doors.
And I've noticed, Ryan,
Army Corps of Engineers involved. We have the Army Corps of Engineers. We built fucking COVID hospitals that held hundreds of thousands of people in a fucking weekend. We have roughly 350,000 children that need to be saved. If my numbers are accurate, roughly 109,000 of them have been raped to death by April 20th. So that means you got roughly 240,000 children right now that need to be rescued and saved that are still, as of today, about to hit their expiration date.
What about the 30,000 that I think on a couple days into Tom Homan's tenure,
70,000. They had eyes
70,000.
on them. We had
They just-
eyes. Listen to the verbiage. We have eyes. We have
so
located.
they're not rescued.
Not one word about rescuing, was there? Not one photo op, not one. Even if they had rescued 70,000 children, can you imagine the optics, the news, the press conference? Where are they going? Where did you put them? Where did you find them? What were the environments like where you rescued them from? Nothing. No, we located.
Maybe an interview with some media outlets with the reunited family and the child. Maybe something like that.
Do you know what a PR publicity stunt that would be if Tom Homan went and saved 70,000 children?
Yeah.
And the mothers, the testimonials, the Trump's doing the right thing. We saved. It would be fucking headline news everywhere. And then you'd have CNN getting access to, where I should be the one, if anybody's getting access to interviewing these poor innocent children, it'd be CNN getting in there and doing their stage fucking interviews where they got the mom and the child and their 60-minute. It would be over and over and over again every day. I mean, it is such a stain on our nation's history. Even for Trump to admit and acknowledge an RFK, I mean, the world's going to see this and go, what the fuck? America, the leader of the free world, was literally running the largest international child trafficking operation. I had the attorney general of a foreign country, and it's Guatemala. It's not like, it's third world in areas, but in other areas, it's very second world, if not first world. Yeah. I booked an Airbnb. I got flown into a fucking safe house, right? Like they have armored cars that pick me up from the airport, right? But it's a normal airport. You got an airport, you want a taxi, there's taxis. You want Airbnb, you want to go to a mall, they got malls, they got everything that you could think of. Attorneys, like Guatemala is really, in their city of Guatemala is developed. The attorney that showed up to do an interview with me, he's driving a Benz, right? Like, so these guys there's money over there. And their attorney general invited me to Guatemala because they had, for the last year, been trying to reach out to our government. Now you have an ambassador, right? Like the reason that you want to appoint an ambassador is so that authority figures in these other countries have a direct line of communication to the White House, right?
Yeah.
So, and to our government, to the oversight, to the FBI. They were writing letters to James Comer. They were writing letters to Chris Wray. They were writing letters to Merrick Garland. They were writing letters to Ken Paxton, right? Saying, hey, we have undisputable evidence and proof that Save the Children, along with 5 other NGOs that operate in the state of Texas and in Guatemala, have been kidnapping Guatemala children, smuggling them into America, and then processing them migratorily at the border, and then putting them into these systems into these facilities where our Guatemalan children are supposed to be taken care of. These are supposed to act like they're their parents, but really our children are getting raped inside your facilities. And we know that Texas is aware of this. And the craziest part about this story is the fact that it's being funded with the American taxpayer dollars. And this is in a letter to Ken Paxton prior to raiding Save the Children. So they had the opportunity, Ken Paxton did, to do a joint raid on, like, when you have a foreign nation saying that we have evidence that these organizations are trafficking children. Do you know how easy it would have been for Ken Paxton to go to a judge and get a warrant to raid all of those facilities? Yeah. And you couldn't have just raided the ones in Texas. You would have went international on that. You would have went every single Save the Children Foundation and El Deplu, and there's like 5 of them that are on there. And you would have rated them all simultaneously. And then you would have got all the evidence, all the paperwork. You would have seen how the trails are running, how the pipelines are working, how they're moving the children, all of the communication internally. And you guarantee that those 5 NGOs are also talking to other NGOs. So you would have literally spider-webbed out and you would have crushed this entire network. And that was on April 17th of 2024 when they raided Save the Children. Yes, it was. It was April 17th of 2024. And then Anthony Blinken takes a surprise trip to Guatemala. Like 12 days later, it was May 7th. He flies to Guatemala after they raided that foundation and holds a press conference congratulating the president of Guatemala, who our government was involved in rigging that election. That documentary is going to be releasing in about 14 days, and Marco Rubio is going to have a really bad day. So Marco Rubio was involved in rigging the Guatemalan election, working directly with USAID. He also was there. Blinken was the one previous, right? He had Rubio's role. So Blinken flies into Guatemala, holds a press conference with the president that we rigged and installed, and compliments on him on his anti-corruption campaign. So this man ran his whole presidency on, I'm going to get the attorney general of Guatemala fired. Just like Letitia James ran her entire campaign on, I'm going to get Trump as soon as I get into office. That's what this man did. So he basically ran this fake campaign, kind of like Biden, was in 8th place. Nobody knew who this guy was. Nobody heard him. He always wins the primary and then moves on to win the general election. Okay. After that, right? After we know, because it's same day, in-person paper ballots, handwritten paper ballots, and they get uploaded to the cloud. So as soon as they fill out a ballot, it basically puts it in this machine spits it up to the internet and everybody can see it, right? So we're able to go on their website. It's not like the Dominion, like where I have to get internal documents and all this bullshit, like, or FOIA. It's all public. So I was able to go publicly and pull all this information, and based off of Guatemalan laws, like they have a rule, like when these ballots are filled out, the person that's like the supervisor of the station, right, of that polling location, there's 3 of them. The 3 of them have to sign the thing stating that they were there and that it was a legit ballot, and they have to stamp it, right? If you don't do all of these checks, then that ballot would be considered void. If it doesn't have a seal of authenticity, you can't prove that it was done at that location or that the 3 people signed it and verified it, then you would assume that it's forged or it's fraudulent, which is by their law, right? So out of all of the ballots, there's like 120,000 or some crazy, or 450,000 or whatever. 95.28% were fraudulent. So their law states that if 33% or more are fraudulent, then this electoral Supreme College has to order basically another snap election, and they have to redo the process. And the electoral college, which our government also has, USAID has also been installing those people over the last 10 years, right? All of them certified the election, the fraudulent election. So there's a huge investigation. So then Blinken doesn't fly down there when we're exposing the rigged election. Until the Save the Children Foundation got raided, Blinken's on a flight like 12 days later, holds a press conference where he tells basically America and the Guatemalan people that he's so proud of this president and his anti-corruption campaign. So his anti-corruption campaign is to get this attorney general fired. And then he goes on to tell the president how there's billions of dollars of capital that's about to start flowing into Guatemala because there's so many amazing investment opportunities. But if he doesn't clean up the corruption problem in Guatemala, Blinken doesn't think that money's coming. So basically, you either fire this attorney general or you ain't getting the $2 billion. Wow. Sound familiar?
Yeah, it's a Biden move, isn't it? Biden.
Then he
Ukraine.
went on, check this out. He went on to suspend. So in order for the attorney general of Guatemala to investigate the election fraud, she has to present that information to Congress, right? And Congress has to vote and give her the authority to investigate. So she presents the information that she had been given to her. She can't open an investigation. She can't start an investigation. External people, citizens, have to report the crime. She has to present the crime to Congress. Congress has to vote, give her the authority to investigate, and then she can investigate. So 128 out of 200 something members of Congress voted to give her the authority, right? Wow. Blinken goes and suspends the visas of all 128 members of their Congress just for voting, that one vote. So our government has something like the I forget what the clause is. It's like the Magnitsky Act, or there's some other act which basically gives the United States government in these third world countries the ability to go, oh, you fund terrorism. Oh, you support Venezuela. Oh, you're laundering money for the CCP. Boom, we put you on this sanctions list, and it strips away your visa. So they stripped away 128 visas, and then they went through and they took an additional 400 visas from their children, their friends, and family members. And some of these people have been like loyal allies to the United States government for the last 20 years. They have nothing they've done. They've carried the water. Their government is corrupt. Their election was rigged, and they vote to we want to look and just see. Why would it matter if we investigated it and the election was legit? You would want that. You would want that investigation to be over in a couple of days. Let's do it. But when they're attacking these people and they want to prevent somebody from investigating their own election, that's not democracy.
Yeah.
That's the United States. That's tyranny. That's our government, in my opinion, an act of war on somebody that we consider our ally. And again, it's never to benefit. It's not like Guatemala is going to become an economic powerhouse and start pumping out trillions of dollars of oil tomorrow. It's not like they have diamonds that are going to mess up Israel's market. They just want to be left the F alone. And the only reason we have to keep doing this is because they are terrified that if any politician gets into a position of power, they are going to expose the United States government for all that they did. All of their crimes over the last 20 or 30 years is going to be put on display for the entire world to see. And if one country does it, if you use Guatemala as the example of what USAID does to a country, you're going to get USAID and the United States government kicked out of every country. And then you see, so it goes in, we come in with USAID does their things. They launch a network of NGOs, right? So USAID comes in, with a big chunk of money, and then USAID funds an NGO. And then that NGO takes their capital and funds another NGO that funds another NGO that funds another NGO. You see, so you have these NGOs that are structured in these third world countries, and one of them's promoting, LGBTQ books in schools. The next one's promoting transgender surgeries for children. The next one's counseling for, abortions or whatever the case may be. At one point, Todd Robinson was leading the charge trying to get Guatemala to pass laws to make abortion legal. What in the hell are our ambassadors to the United States of America doing in third world countries, trying to force a 90% Christian nation to legalize abortion? That sparked the largest protest in Guatemalan history. That brought, people from tribes in these freaking villages that live in huts that don't have electricity or running water came to Guatemala, walked like hundreds of miles to stand in solidarity in this protest. They were so pissed off and outraged. And then who is Todd Robinson? So my last trip to Guatemala, I get a hard drive, right? Or I get a thumb drive handed to me by a confidential human source. I can't reveal who. But on this hard drive, it's all the bank accounts and the offshore bank accounts of Todd Robinson. So Todd Robinson, our ambassador, I have physical evidence that he has over millions, and I mean millions of dollars in offshore bank accounts, not just one bank account, like 7 offshore bank accounts, one in the Bahamas, one over in Switzerland, one over in Germany, in the US, and there's at its peak that I seen was over $3.4 million. So this is some government employee that works on a $100-something thousand a year salary that somehow has millions and millions of dollars in capital and just in offshore bank accounts. He has a private residency in a private palace in Guatemala where he would throw, and this is coming from internally from an investigation that was, I assume, ordered by President Jimmy Morales. So in 2017, Jimmy Morales' administration, and he was the last good president that Guatemala had got a report that Todd Robinson was raping and sexually assaulting little boys at his private parties. So he orders an investigation into Todd Robinson, and the report basically reads, I'll summarize it. Todd Robinson is a raging alcoholic. There's never an event, a meeting, a party where drinks aren't involved, and Todd Robinson never stops drinking until he goes to bed, basically. So he drinks until he's drunk and he passes out. Anytime they're driving in a vehicle or going from a location to another, if he gets a phone call, he pulls over the car and he makes all of the people inside the car get out while he takes the phone call, and they all have to stand outside of the car while he does his business or whatever. I mean, you're talking about Guatemala, it's freaking hot there. So you're talking about being 110 degrees and you're on the side of a cement road and he just pulls over and makes you go stand outside of the car for 30 minutes while he talks on his phone. The piece of shit. And then he has 2 gay lovers. One is an actual employee at the US embassy. And then another is an actual Guatemalan local. One of them was a younger boy. I assume that they were talking about younger, being like 18 or 22 or whatever, compared to Todd Robinson, who's probably 40 or 50. Then they said that he would throw these they didn't say Diddy style freak offs. They said 2 to 3 day parties, right? So when you're talking about a party that lasts 2 or 3 days, it's drug induced, right? Yeah. If you ever, like, you've been a kid, stayed up playing video games at your buddy's house overnight, you're like, I'm going to pull an all nighter. We're going to play video games for 2 days. And the next day it's like noon and you and your buddy are on the couch passed out because, after 30 hours of being wide awake, you just can't keep moving. So these parties lasting 3 days, they're obviously drug fueled, Diddy style freak off. And Ryan, just hold on, let me land this real quick. Let me land this. Hold on. Let me land this so at this Diddy style freak off, a 13-year-old boy, or sorry, a 12-year-old boy, no, 13-year-old boy was sexually brutalized so bad that he had to be hospitalized. So this mother files a police report against Todd Robinson for sexually abusing her child. And the report reads that he was in bed with the cartels. So the cartels, and the age of consent is 14 in Guatemala. So he's having the cartels deliver, 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old boys like eye candy to his party. And at one of his parties, he got drunk, blackout drunk, and went and ripped a gun out of a security guard's arms, or out of the security guard's waistband, and started shooting it in the air, just being like a drunken idiot, shooting it all around. And after the security guard was like, all right, let me get my gun back, like went and Todd was like not giving it back, and there was a scuffle broke out. Somehow Todd shoots the security guard in the leg. And that was the last time that anybody's ever, the security guard left it in the ambulance. They said the ambulance was called, he left the ambulance, but that was the last time that anybody's ever seen or heard from that security guard again alive.
Oh my God.
Wow. And Ryan, this is, for the benefit of our listeners, Todd Robinson is the former U.S. ambassador to Guatemala from 14 to 17, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Appointed by Obama, I believe, fired or not, or pushed out under the Trump administration. And He's a government employee. He's been in. He graduated from Georgetown University and went immediately right out of college straight into the State Department and got promotion after promotion after promotion after promotion all the way till under Blinken. He was the top like international narcotics cop. So we have overdose epidemics, the worst drug crisis in the world, and Todd Robinson, the alleged pedophile and rapist from Guatemala and child rapist, is the guy that's in charge of making sure like securing drug and narco trafficking around the world.
And Ryan, this is, I mean, aside from this being just insanely disturbing as a whole setup, what's even more unsettling is that this is one example. Guatemala is one country that this is happening. When we had a guest come on a couple weeks ago, 107, and he was saying that he pointed to the fact that more than 70 countries we have overthrown the governments of through the CIA, the State Department, USAID funded, fueled color revolution. So what you have learned about Guatemala and the story of Guatemala and all of the corruption and insanity and depravity that's been rooted into the system through our own government, through our tax dollars, that's just one of potentially 70, potentially many, many more stories of how the U.S. has, like a cancer, gone into these countries and destroyed the fabric of the way they operate.
So in 2 weeks, Operation Regime Change, which is going to be my documentary, which is going to highlight exactly that. I think I'm going to go over 5 or 10 of the main countries that USAID has actually been caught red-handed, Venezuela being one. I mean, they were sending aid trucks, and Maduro stopped those aid trucks on a bridge, lit them on fire, and when they burnt down, like they were the big canopy style, they almost look like a wagon. They got the canopy over the back of it, and they were supposed to be aid trucks. Well, in the bottom belly of those trucks were all AR-15s and AK-47s. So after the truck burnt, you just see like a bunch of charred guns on the inside, zero aid, right? Like that's not aid. That's us delivering weapons to both sides. We fund money to the government and we send weapons to the cartels and we let them just fight each other. Why? Because once you send a country into a civil war, which is their goal, that's what Guatemala, if they remove this attorney general in less than 2 years, Guatemala will be in a civil war. And what happens in a civil war? All the evidence gets burnt.
Yeah.
Right? All of your government institutions, all the files, there's no chain of custody, there's no elections to investigate, there's no police department to hold people accountable, just pure chaos. And then what do? And after that, we send in our NGOs, and the NGOs do what? Oh,
State
they set up
building.
front organization. Yeah, we're refugee centers. There are all these displaced people, and we're really trafficking those gosh damn people. But to land that home, after this film comes El Salvador, right? At Bitcoin Nashville on May 27th. Bitcoin Vegas, the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas on May 27th. I'm going to release my documentary called The Great El Salvadorian Comeback, God, Bukele, and Bitcoin. And it's going to showcase, because El Salvador was the worst of it, right? We drove them into 2 civil wars from the 60s. In 1963, when JFK basically first created USAID, one of the first places they went was El Salvador. And over, I think it was over a basically 60-year period, 70-year period, roughly, we've sent them $7.5 billion. And we turned that country into the murder capital of the world. It was the deadliest. Like if there was one place you're like 4 years ago, like, oh, where do you want to go on vacation? Oh, El Salvador? Are you kidding? Yeah, with an AR-15 and a bulletproof vest and security, right? Like you weren't going to vacation in El Salvador. Nobody visited. It was a hellhole. It was hell on earth because our government turned it into hell on earth. Bukele gets in office in 2019. It took him about 2.5 years to basically build these mega prisons and kind of start to put these pieces into play. And then the cartels went out and they murdered 63. Once he built that president and actually started arresting cartel members, that was the first time they've ever been sent to jail. So they're like, oh, you're going to send us to jail? We're going to send a message. And they went out and slaughtered 63 innocent American or citizens. And I think it was 127 or 137 in one weekend. And that on Monday, basically, when Congress adjourned, Bukele held an immediate vote, right, on giving him the authority to basically suspend the Constitution because he had the left and right were fighting against him, bad judges, and the cartel members controlled the judges, they controlled the politicians, they controlled the lobbyists, they controlled everything. So when they would get sent to jail, they would get the cases dismissed, they'd get released. So even the people that were reporting them and turning them in, once that cartel member got back out on the streets, if he thought you reported him, you were dead. I mean, they were killing, I think the death rate was like 7 or 10 murders per day, every day in El Salvador. It was just common, right? The girls would tell me that when they would go to work, they couldn't even wear their headphones on public transportation because your headphones were a sign of money, and they would rob you for them. So you get on a bus, you keep your head down, you would just go, you wouldn't talk to anybody. You just go to school, go to work, and come straight home. And you would avoid the streets. You'd never go out at dark. And they had all these things because of the policies. But once Bukele took power, it took him 2.5 years to get them to change the vote. And then once they changed the vote and he got reelected, I think it was the election was last year or whatever when he got reelected. And that's when he had it was basically like a State of the Union where all of the politicians come into one room, one conference center. And Bukele came in there, locked the doors behind him, had his sergeant at arms in there, and he orders his sergeant at arms to investigate every single person in this room. And I think they took out another 6 corrupt individuals out of his political arena. And then next thing you know, he arrested all the politicians. And at day 2.5 years, he cut off USAID. So that was one of the first strategical things he did. He came in there and cut off USAID because USAID was originally funneling money to the El Salvadorian government, but because they control the government, when USAID gives money to the government gives money to wherever they want, whatever causes. So it was a giant money laundering operation in El Salvador. I mean, USAID is known in every country basically as the Beltway bandits. And the going rate is if you want money from USAID, they're going to take 60%. So if you apply for a grant that's going to be $1 million, you'll get your $1 million, but you're only going to get 400,000 of it because they're going to cut 60% off the top for themselves and basically line their own pockets. Yeah. So then Bukele said, you know what, the USAID said, you know what, we're not going to give the money to the government anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to give it directly to the causes in El Salvador that we want to give it to. And Bukele said, the fuck you are. You can take that money and you can give it to the American people because it's their money. It doesn't belong to El Salvador. We don't deserve US money. Give it to your citizens where it belongs. And then so basically USAID is still like lingering around in El Salvador, but it's like, 95% of it has been basically cut off at the root and eradicated from Guatemalan society. To go a step further, they even had one politician who most likely was getting money kickbacks from USAID that was planning some type of gay pride festival in like the capital of El Salvador over a weekend. And Bukele caught wind of it, fired, gone. Because he doesn't want it. They're 100% abortions, 100% illegal, even for rape, which I don't necessarily agree with, but abortion is completely illegal in El Salvador. Prostitution is legal, which is whole nother animal. I'm working on another documentary called Sex Tourism, and it's about prostitution and what it does to a society and civilization. And as fucked up as this sounds, we need to legalize it. We need to legalize and regulate prostitution here. It is the only way. And I mean the only way to save women and children. And you go look in El Salvador, it's legal. They have maybe 6 brothels in the entire country. Every single brothel, the girls are 20 years old or older. They all are there on their own will and by choice. And it is non-existent. There is 0 prostitution on the streets. There are 0 hookers walking around. There's 0 child trafficking. And it's probably one of the safest environments for the girls. They all have call buttons in their room. None of them have ever reported that they've been raped to me or physically assaulted or hurt by any of the Johns that come into these facilities. They have security guards everywhere, and it's almost non-existent. And unless you go out actively looking for it, you won't know it's there. Australia, prostitution also legal. Same thing. In Australia, it's even more regulated to the point where you go in and you sit down with the girls and you negotiate that you go into basically a strip club and they'll sit you at a table and then one girl at a time will come over and talk to you for 2 minutes and you basically negotiate your prices or whatever services you're looking to buy from her. And then after you go into another room where you actually have to whip your stuff out, your junk out, and the girls come in there and inspect it for STDs. And then if you pass the test, then you go in the room and you get the girl in the room for an hour and you leave and you go about your business. Also, again, I couldn't tell on the streets. It was non-existent. There was no prostitutes. There was no homeless people out on the streets. There were no hookers on the corners. It was the most regulated and clean industry that I've ever seen. And I didn't see the aftermath. And then you go into a country like Malaysia, where it's like decriminalized and almost like promoted. Like they have red light districts. And it's like, even the girls there, even the girls that I met that were being trafficked were there by choice. Like they chose to go over there and work on the streets and be trafficked. And I don't think they understood fully the environment and how rough it was really going to be. But the areas that they came from were even worse than that, because I offered to buy 3 different girls plane tickets home. I was like, you're being trafficked. And they don't really know that they're being trafficked, I don't think, until you tell them it's like an alcoholic who has a drinking problem and thinks it's, there's something wrong. He's drinking every day, but he don't really, once you tell him that he's an alcoholic, almost it's like they unravel, right? Yeah. And it's like, once I started talking to these girls and they realized that, they'd start crying and like, I was like, oh, what, like, let me just buy you a ticket. Because they take their visas and passports from these girls when they're actually trafficking them. So they bring them to a country, they get their plane ticket, they get their visas, they travel with them, they get them to this country. And then once they get them in this country, they buy their room and board for 1 month. And they have to go out on the streets and earn their money. And then they have to give a percentage of that money back to the trafficker every day, right? Yeah. But the trafficker is holding onto the passport. So they technically think they can't leave because they don't have a passport to get home. They don't know that they can just go to an airport and turn themselves in. So they're all trying to earn back this passport, right? And these are the things that in a real well-regulated economy or world or government, like they wouldn't be able to, the traffickers can't do that, right? They wouldn't be able to do that. The girls can't go work on the streets, right? And they can't get a job because they're over on a visa working inside one of the actual brothels. So all the black girls that were on the streets were all basically being trafficked and prostituting themselves on the streets. And then you go to all of the actual, like the massage parlors and the actual brothels. Those are all the Asian girls where they're actually legally working there as well. And that was still like a disgusting type of environment where it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like Australia's got it right. El Salvador's got it right. America, their strategy is to go after the Johns. They want to go after and make the punishment more hard for the person that's buying it. And all you're going to do is make the traffickers rich, right? You're just going to increase the price because it's going to be that much more dangerous and nothing's going to change. You might put a few Johns in prison or a few guys in jail, but there's going to be 10 more after them, right? And the cartels will get smarter. The only way to fix this problem is to regulate it to death. We destroyed the crypto industry, basically regulating it. We destroyed nuclear energy by regulating it to death. Anytime you want to really gut an industry, you regulate it to death. And that's how we do it. We make the punishment for any girls that are out in the corners prostituting, like literally seriously harsh. Anytime you bust the prostitute that's working in the corner, most likely she's getting pimped out by a John. So then you cut by a pimp or a trafficker. So then you cut a deal with her. You let her wear a wire and go bust that dude. And you put that dude in prison for life or death penalty. Right? And you send a couple of these traffickers to the death penalty, to the gallows, and I guarantee you end human trafficking. If I had the authority just that the FBI had on January 6th, and I had the resources and technology that our government has, that we know our government has, I could completely end human and child trafficking in America in less than 2 years. In 1 year, out of the probably 500,000 to a million missing, kidnapped, trafficked children in America right now, I bet you I could find every single one of them. Or I bet you could find.
So Ryan, what's the movement? The movement. What is the reason? What is the reason why the top levels of our government, the FBI, the Justice Department, DHH, are they compromised? Is that why they're not moving forward on this? Of this?
You talk to FBI whistleblowers like Garrett O'Boyle. I was just talking to him yesterday about this, and he says it's common knowledge in the FBI that the FBI agents talk about themselves amongst themselves, and they say that we could basically assign every single FBI agent in the world to working child porn and arresting people that are, on the internet looking at child porn, and we couldn't arrest them all. Every single agent every day would do nothing but arrest these pedophiles that are looking at child porn. So the problem is so vast, and it's known. The fact that we're not even making a dent only leads you to believe that your government has to be corrupt. Because if you look at a society and you're like, okay, what are our top issues like that are affecting society? Child trafficking has to be at the very, very top. Like you can't tell me anything's more important than the life of a child. Okay, so where are our resources dedicated? They're not dedicated to that, right? They're dedicated to like hunting down innocent January 6ers and fighting anti-Semitism and worrying about climate change and all this other crazy stuff. And like these white collar crimes where you got like a billionaire that like laundered $100,000 out of his company. Like, I don't care about that 100. I mean, I do, and it's a crime, and they should be prosecuted, but it shouldn't take priority over these children. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, I think our government's just so big and slow bloated, and the FBI is so deep compartmentalized, and there's so many agencies inside the FBI that do, fishing and hunting and child porn. And you got one that does, money laundering, and you got one that does embezzlement, and you got one that does RICO, and you got one that does, political crimes. You got all these different organizations, and it's so fractured. And then you have, like a child trafficking division in Nevada, then you have one in Miami, and then you have one over here. And it's like, they're all so spread out. I don't know. I'm not an FBI agent. I just know if I had the reins and like I had a mission and Trump were to create a task force and give me unlimited resources and we have a whole military. Let's bring our boys back that are overseas in these third world countries, and let's put them out on the streets as temporary agents, right? Like, I'm sure there's something where you could take somebody from the military and give them a temporary leave of service if they would like to come and join the FBI, and they could spend 3 years on a child trafficking task force that would, equal what their service. And then if they wanted to go back to the military at rank or whatever, we could create some type of program where we could put all of our troops to work here, securing the homeland and fighting to save women and children here in America. And I mean, do you know how fast like word gets out that we're deploying our military in an advanced elite child trafficking task force to eliminate and take down all traffickers? Anybody caught's getting the death penalty. Oh boy, do you know how fast we would eradicate child trafficking from America? It would happen like overnight pretty much, because when the punishment is so harsh that it's death, there's no risk versus reward to death, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it has to be pretty gosh damn high. So why would you traffic children in America when you can just do it in another country, right?
Yeah.
Like so like this sex tourism documentary. So basically you have sex in America, which is roughly $300. So you could probably get it for 100 if you're going like to the streets in California and San Diego. But let's just say the going rate is 300 for like a brothel, right? Then you go down to El Salvador, you're looking at like 125. Then you go to Malaysia, where you're looking at 50. Then you go over to Thailand, where you're looking at 25 to 50. Then you go to the Philippines, where you're looking, then you go to Colombia, where you're looking at 10 to 15. Then you go to the Philippines, where you're looking at about 10. Then you go to Senegal, where literally children are having sex for 50 cents. You can have sex with a child in Madagascar for 50 cents. Now, I haven't confirmed that, but I'm going undercover in Madagascar in probably the next 2 months. So I'm working on this documentary. So you're going to see the degradation. You're going to see exactly, in America, we have it. It's horrible. Prostitution is absolutely horrible. You go into the clubs, the girls are getting pimped out in the clubs. They're getting trafficked in the clubs because they're not regulated. You got girls that are working on the street. You got California, where Gavin Newsom passed a law that states that they took away the law that gave the cops the ability to arrest a girl that was standing on the corner wearing a G-string thong next at 6:30 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning next to your daughter's bus stop. Like, there's literally prostitutes in California that are out there in front of bus stops with their G-strings and thongs. And you got, obviously the customers that are coming up in those areas are not the best type of people, and they're around your children. So Gavin Newsom passed a law that said it's illegal for a cop to arrest a prostitute who's prostituting on the corner because it's racist. Because too many of them were Black and Mexican, that it was racist. So now you go to California and you go to the street in San Diego, and it's literally like, I've never seen anything like it. You go there at 10 o'clock at night, and there was probably like, you have like those industrial parkways where you have a bunch of industry, like buildings on the left and right side of the road, and the road it's like a side road that goes back and ends in a cul-de-sac. By the time you basically got to that cul-de-sac, maybe a quarter of a mile drive, I bet you there were 75 to 100 prostitutes working, all girls out in G-strings from what looked like 18. One of the girls I interviewed said that a lot of times when the younger girls are out there, if they're like 16 or 17 or supposedly obviously underage, that the other girls kind of look out for them and they try to run them off and get them up out of the streets. But they're out there working and they're still doing it. So 300 in the United States, and those prices go down. And I'm going to bring you a documentary that's going to showcase exactly how evil, how the trafficking networks work, how the girls are getting brought in. And this crazy part is the girls over in Thailand that I offered to buy tickets to, that were like, listen, like we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't know it was going to be this bad, but going home with no money is not an option. We're going to stay over here. But I never met one that had got her passport back, right? Every single girl I interviewed, it almost felt like she was either there for 1 month, she was there for 3 months. Never did I meet one that was there for longer than 3 months, except for one girl in Malaysia. And she was overstayed visa. She had been to prison twice for overstaying her visa because she couldn't pay the madam. So she basically they give a percentage of the money they make every night or every week to the madam. Let's just say let's say they owe $200 a week to the madam. Then they owe $50 a week to get their visa renewed. Right. So that's like $250 a week just to break even. Then it's a month. Let's just say it's a month. So let's say they owe $1,000 a month. Then they have to also try to save money on top of that. So they're giving, and you're talking about, having sex, getting paid $50. How many times you have to have sex to make that $1,000? That's 20 times a month, 20 different people that you're sleeping with just to pay your trafficker and the visa. So she couldn't pay the trafficker. She didn't make enough money that month. So she just said, screw it, I'm not going to pay the trafficker. And if you can't pay the trafficker, you can't pay to get your visa renewed. 3 days later, she was arrested, right? The madams, and then she gets out of jail, didn't pay the madam, told the madam to get fucked again. 4 days later, she was taken back again for 4 months. She had just got out, and first thing she did was go prostitute, make money. Then she went and paid the madam immediately, and she's now been out. She's been paying the madam. She's been out for 4 months and hasn't been touched, but also hasn't paid her visa. So it's like the The police in these third world countries are corrupt and work with the madam. So if the girls overstay their visa and don't pay, then the police go and arrest you. But if you're paying the madam, the police turn the other eye and they let you out there and they let you work.
Ryan, you spend a lot of time, and I think it's your mission in life, or at least your mission for now, from God, to think about and to expose a lot of evil that's happening, a lot of horrible things that are happening. I want to bring you back to President Bukele. So he was with Trump at the White House yesterday, and he talked about going, as you said, from the murder capital of the world to the safest country in the world. And I have a quote from him here. And he offered to help President Trump basically fulfill the same mission, right? And he said, the fact is, Mr. President, that you have 350 million people to liberate. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works. You cannot just free the criminals and think that the crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. You've been to El Salvador. Have you ever had the time or just the free headspace to be able to think about an America that would be that free and what it's going to take for us to get there?
It's that simple. You heard him say it right there, right? It would be so easy. Trump holds the State of the Union. This would be the first thing I would do, because we already have the prison networks to put the criminals in jail, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do is first off, we have to get the evidence and we have to declassify the records, right? So we're waiting on the Epstein files. We're waiting on the JFK files. We're waiting on the MFK files. It's half redacted. It's half not redacted. No. Again, Judicial Watch is calling exactly how you should do it. You need to have an independent, because the president has the authority to create a branch of government or an organization or a temporary task force that reports directly to the president, right? So what you do is you create a task force that reports directly to the president, and they go and do all the investigations and they release all this information. They release the JFK files. So that'll take about 30 days. That all in that information gets out there. And in that time, you're going to crowdsource everything. So you're going to have thousands of independent journalists like ourselves that are just going to go hard, and we're going to pick a piece and we're going to break it down. We're going to connect all the dots, and that information is going to be out there, right? So then once you wake up the masses, right? And that's what Bukele did, right? Those cartel members went and shot like 127 people or 63 people in a day. Everybody in the country felt unsafe. So you literally had everybody in the country was like, dude, when are we going to hold these criminals? Right now, you're starting to hear it, right? Everybody's like, day 84, Trump, no politicians. I mean, they got counters, how many politicians have been arrested. Like, everybody's waking up. So the awakening's happening. You get those files out there and let us see the truth. Then what you do is and I've heard from somebody I randomly ran into that heard me over talking at the airport. This man was an ex-Special Forces Green Beret operative. He was well connected, very wealthy and successful man, but like out of the politics and out of things. He got a phone call from somebody because of, basically what he did in the Special Forces, and allegedly that they were talking about Trump putting together a special task force. This is invite only, and they're only inviting very specific people, that Trump's going to have a task force that's going to investigate politicians. So that's what would really need to happen. So after you wake everybody up, you do exactly what Bukele did. You hold a State of the Union. Every single politician's in that room. You lock the doors. You bring in your special task force. And those people, I mean, I would bring them in immediately. Like, if they already have the evidence to arrest people, I would bring that task force in front of the entire world. And I would put the cuffs on the people that are going to prison. The people that we know that are pinned down, rock solid. We got all the dots are connected. Boom. Nancy Pelosi would be easy. Day one, right? Insider trading, she's gone. At least for insider trading, all of them, right? And you put every single one of them in prison. You hold special new elections that are free and fair. Once we get our elections, that would be also huge. So before you arrest everybody, and you're going to have these snap elections, right? You have to make sure that they're not still being rigged. So we have to get same day in-person voting, paper ID, so there's a lot of key moving pieces that I think Trump is really trying to do good. It's hard to say with, watching all of these people that are obviously not the best candidates for the job get put into positions because of what looks like, one could only assume, their loyalty to Israel, right? And it's like you can't have people, you can't be pro-Israel in America first. You just can't, right? You can't tell me that dropping bombs on innocent women and children is God's plan. Like, we're just like, you go over there and see what they've done to Gaza, and actually look at the carnage from not like an Israel or not like a Palestine, but just like a human standpoint.
Yeah.
And you see they were ordering cement trucks and dumping cement truck fulls, like those giant barrels spinning with the chutes coming down into their aquifers, into their water aquifers. Like those are war crimes, right? Like you can't, even if you say you're trying to take out Hamas, you can't starve women and children. You can't tell people to go to a refugee area and you corral all these people in an area, and then like sirens go off and they got minutes to run before bombs are dropping on them. It's like, it's war crimes, it's genocide, and it's like, we're watching it eat away at the fabric of our society, and it's eroding our government from the inside out because they're trying, like, they can't cover it up anymore, right? It's become so outrageous, and what Israel needs to win this war is so I don't know how to say it. It's unrealistic. It's not. There is no winning this war. You can't go in. You can't occupy somebody else's land. I mean, it's part of the Geneva Convention. You can't go and just, big bad United States, we have the military power to just so we just go over to Africa next and we just wipe all the people in Africa off the map because they can't fight us, and then we just go take their land. Like, you can't do that. we drew these.
Do you think Rubio is there on purpose? I mean, do you think that this is a little bit of a setup for Rubio to be one of the ones, because you think about all these politicians that have to be arrested, they can't all be one party. It can't all be opponents of Trump for optics.
Right.
So I would think, after I saw what you were saying about Rubio, I was really, honestly hopeful that this is a setup so that some of these folks, people in Trump's administration are probably going to have to roll right along with everybody else.
I said that from the very beginning, that Rubio had to be a setup, right? I didn't so it's either a setup or a cover up, right? He was put there on purpose, and you're either going to let him cover it up or it was a complete setup because he was directly involved in it. I mean, Laura Loomer was just tweeting out, like, one of the key lieutenants yesterday. What was his name?
Morocco. I can't recall the first name.
Yeah. What happened? So if I can pull up that tweet really quick for a second.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan and Danielle, I'm walking into a committee room now at the Capitol to go fight some Goliaths.
Okay,
so I'm going to politely excuse myself now. But I want to tell you before I go, Ryan, I know Danielle, y'all are in the middle of the conversation, but I wanted to tell you once again how much I appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the state of freedom. And it is just extraordinary to have you in our midst and slaying the dragons that you're slaying. And we are 100% behind you. God bless you, sir, and we will talk soon. Thank you, Danielle.
Chris, man, go get him, brother.
Thanks, Chris. We'll talk later. All right. There we go. Cool. All right.
I was pulling up that Loomer tweet. I saw it somewhere. And it's just like, you're like, look at like what we're doing with China, right? Like, all of a sudden China's the bad guy. And it's like, dude, you see the Chinese citizens are just mocking us. They're like, oh, what happened? Oh yeah, you're elite, right? Like, you're millionaires in America, Microsoft, Apple, right? Ford, not Ford. Ford didn't do it. I mean, Henry Ford was dead before it actually happened. But GM, Chrysler, all of these mega corporations make hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of dollars, right? And they took that wealth and they moved that wealth to other countries and invested that in building infrastructure and taking jobs from America and moving them over to these other countries. And what did those other countries welcome it with open arms? Why? Because those factories, those companies, the corporations, that's what bring your lower class and your middle class up out of poverty, right?
Yeah.
So in the last 15 years, China's taken some odd 315 million citizens out of poverty. That's like more than our entire country. And you look at America, the average American citizen that makes less than $150,000 a year, I think 78% are living paycheck to paycheck. The average American citizen has an $11,000 credit card balance. The average APR on that credit card is 20.98%. So you just look at that. The average American is paying $1,100 a month just to their interest payments on their credit cards. Bankruptcies right now are accelerating at a rate faster than they were during the 2008 financial crisis. The amount of cars being repossessed are accelerating at a rate faster than the 2008 financial crisis. Like, we are walking and teetering on this borderline of complete ruin. And I think that Trump, with what he's doing with remonetizing our debt and actually putting our assets on a balance sheet, like the gold revaluation and kind of backing the US dollar with Bitcoin, I think is the only attempt that they're going to have at maybe saving this. And I'm trying to find that Loomer tweet because I know I tweeted it out.
You did. And I do want to I want to have you back on to talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah,
well.
anytime. Bitcoin's up right at my wheelhouse. I wish I could find. Let me just look at Loomer's page and see if I can pull that up, because it was really. What was she talking about again?
I saw it on your page. It was she was, I think it was to do with, was it Epstein?
No, it was the USAID guy got
Yeah.
fired.
Oh yeah, Morocco. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it here.
Wow. It's like Mike's that one of those dudes in Trump's administration is literally undermining him every fucking step of the way. Damn, I can't find it.
Are you saying it's someone's undermining him, or are you saying someone specific?
Yeah, that guy in the Signal chat. What was his name?
Oh,
Gosh.
the was
So this is a new one. This is an hour ago. She says NSC advisor Michael Waltz
Mike Waltz,
has
yeah.
just promoted Ivan Canapathy within the NSC, despite orders by President Trump to fire him for his associations with Mike Burrell and Laurel Penance. Kapathy is now not only the NSS senior director for Asia, where he is responsible for crafting the Trump administration's approach to China and Taiwan, but has been promoted to oversee all international organizations at the NSC as well. This is unbelievable. Trump wanted Kempathy fired. Why did Waltz disobey Trump's orders and promote him? There is such a lack of vetting and even personal accountability in this administration. Wow.
And did you see yesterday, I think, or the day before, Tulsi hired someone that was a Koch brothers, a former Koch employee that and I guess Trump put a moratorium on any Koch people coming into the administration as well.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Poor Shapiro. So if Ben Shapiro is concerned about attacks on himself during Passover, why didn't he just give $5 million to Al? Oh yeah, he gave it to some Islamic mosque or some shit.
Here you go. I found it. It's Laura Loomer said it's quite deceptive to say Trump appointee Pete Morocco, quote unquote, abruptly left the State Department. Pete Morocco was tasked by President Trump with dismantling USAID. And since we have learned, let's see, sorry, I had to click the more button. Okay, that he was abruptly fired on Friday under Rubio's State Department. Oh yeah, Morocco is so hardcore, he was reportedly inside the Capitol on J6 opposing the certification of the 2020 stolen election. Oh, yeah. So this is sending up flares for sure.
Yeah, why is Rubio taking out people that were literally backing, like there was only a few of them that backed Trump when the 2020 election was stolen. He was one of them, right?
Yeah.
So now that guy is getting canned from USAID because Mark Rubio wants him gone. What did he uncover? Right? Yeah. What was it that he found that Rubio decides like, yep, you ain't keeping your mouth shut, you gone?
That is wild. That is absolutely wild. Well, Ryan, you have been so generous with your time and your insights, and I can't even fathom how you keep all of those statistics so close to the top of your brain. So I just want to appreciate you so much. Thank you for all that you're exposing, all that you are shedding light on, and just being unapologetic defender of the truth. Where can people follow you and get your films and keep tabs on what you're doing? Because you are the most prolific documentarian I have ever seen.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm trying my best. You guys can go over to X at Ryan Matta Media. Mainly, specifically in my highlights, you'll see all of my documentaries, and my main highlighted clips will all be right there in my highlights. And then at Ryan Matta on Rumble is where I do my live shows along with X as well. And then you can follow me on YouTube. I'm never there, Ryan Matta. And that's about it. Mainly just X and Rumble are my two go-to spots.
Okay, great. And if people want to contribute to your work?
Yes, you can do Operation or GiveSendGo / Operation Amber Alert.
Okay.
It's givesendgo.com / Operation Amber Alert. And then OperationAmberAlert.com is also a website where you can find all of my films and all of my work at. And my films are Operation Amber Alert films, so it's really easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. wish you the very best in all the things that you're going to. I heard yesterday, actually, I was talking to someone who was going to Madagascar. It's not too often you talk to two people in the same week going to Madagascar. So I do wish you the best there. Did the president of Madagascar get snuffed whenever he didn't comply with the global COVID mandates?
It probably wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did, and the Tanzanian president also got snuffed for that. So
Yes, he did.
maybe you
Yes,
can look into
Tanzania
that
did.
too. I would love to know more about those things.
Oh, cool. Yes, good call. I'll definitely dig into that.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for joining us today on The State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.